Welcome to People Doing Good for Others. Good morning. This is People Doing Good for Others, where we celebrate and honor and hold in the light those who are truly making significant contributions in our communities. I'm Gary York, and I'm grateful to be here. And I want to thank Wilkes Communications, River Street Productions, 100.9 WIFM for this opportunity. And again, thank you for being with us. We're honored today to have Dr. Marty Hemric. He's a native of Wilkes County. He went to East Wilkes High School, graduated from Guilford College, and has degrees from Gardner-Webb. He's a significant role model here as he's been involved in the Wilkes County Hall of Fame. And we're going to spend quite a bit of our time today talking about his career and also this fabulous Hall of Fame that has so many unique features. So good morning to you, my friend, Marty.
Good morning, Gary. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
It's an honor to have you here with us today. And tell us a little bit about growing up here.
My early life in Wilkes County, I was born here, of course, in eastern Wilkes near Rhonda, and born into a family of 5 children. Had 2 older brothers, Jeff and Rick, and 2 younger sisters, Sandy and Amy. And so blessed in my childhood. And Mom and Dad always made sure that we were in church when the doors were open at church. And they emphasized the significance of education in our lives. And they let us play a lot too. We worked hard early on and contributed in many different ways to our family, but we also played multiple sports and activities, very involved in scouting, and many of those experiences, as I reflect back, played a huge impact in establishing the values that we had in our family, and that still helps sustain me today. So growing up in Wilkes was very different back in the 60s and 70s, of course, and it seemed like we had a lot more of our close and extended family members living in closer communities, attending the same churches, and there weren't many restaurants to attend back then, but so we were a close-knit family, and again, I think that was a very important aspect of my early life. But went to Rhonda Kleeman Elementary School and then to East Wilkes High School. I was involved in many sports and was afforded a scholarship to go to Guilford College and play 4 years of football. And I went there with that on my mind, and then suddenly realized what an educational opportunity that was to go to the liberal arts school there, Quaker College in Greensboro. And at Guilford, it was just such a rewarding experience to learn how to identify who you are as a person, right, to sharpen that saw about this is who I am, this is what I believe in, and then to start appreciating that in others. And so I give Guilford a lot, but my 4 years there really helped me to realize the significance of learning from others. And I used to coach a lot of football and baseball when I was a high school teacher. And I'd often be in the presence during clinics in Greensboro with Lou Holtz. You've heard of Lou Holtz?
Oh my goodness.
And I heard Lou speak many times, and he kept saying the same thing each year is, you're not here to be Lou Holtz. You're here to take something that I might do well, and if it fits in your life, to blend that in. So going back to my time at Guilford, I began to understand that we're blessed to bump into several people in our life, and what we can learn from them and draw from different people to enrich our life is so important. So reflecting now, I did that early in life from my family, many of my classmates. I went to high school with Tony and Todd Welborn. If you've heard those names before.
Players.
Yes, great baseball and football players, great people. And of course we've lost Todd now, but we had such a competitive spirit, both academically in the classroom and on the fields, and other classmates, and helped to drive us to higher levels. And my brothers were the same influence on me. They were great in their different talents, and it's always asking you to step up. So those were experiences in my early life that come back to my mind quite often, and how they influenced me.
Lots of good role models.
Oh yes, and again, going back to my parents.
Yeah.
I mean, but from early on, I would go with my mother because we were on a small farm. We had chicken houses with chickens that were layers. We grew those for wasn't Holly Farms, Chick Haven at the time, and so very early on in life, in the tobacco fields, hay fields, chicken houses, I learned the values of hard work.
Right.
And it wasn't viewed as work; it was an opportunity to contribute in our family, and we embraced it. That's where we were, and we grew together. And later on, my father, he was a carpenter and built houses. He still owns his own company today in garage doors, but he kept growing with his entrepreneurial lifestyle and purchased some grocery stores, and I learned a lot in that sector about him. But the greatest influence that my parents had on me again was instilling the values of that you get up every day, you go to make a difference. And I didn't realize it at the time, but once I reflect years later, I was taught that you get up, you have a plan for success, you know where you are, you know where you want to be, and you, as Dad used to say, he said, you build a pretty red wagon, son, but put some wheels on it. When I would talk about my dreams, he said, and get it moving, that you get up every day, you know where you are.
What were your mom and dad, their names?
Johnny Hemric and Joanne Hemric. They're both still living today.
Okay.
I think my brothers and sisters would all say the same thing and say it better than I could, but that's such a major influence on our life. So
You had parts of this first career, if you will, in education. Let's just, if you will, kind of fast forward to becoming superintendent of Wilkes County Schools and that impacting your life.
And for years, as I was a teacher and coach in high schools, from Davie County High School to Mooresville to Elkin, I would say when superintendents would come in and say, we want you to go into leadership, I'd say, I'll never go into leadership. And I learned to never say never. But eventually, in Elkin High School one day, I was in my biology classroom teaching, and right at the end of the period, Dr. Stephen Laws, some people may remember that name, but he came in, he said, Marty, I want you to go into administration. And for some reason, I felt like that door is opened again. I need to walk through it and go lead. So I went 1 year as assistant principal, and then 4 years as a principal, and all that was in Wilkes County.
All right.
At Mount Pleasant Elementary School, and then 3 at East Wilkes High School. Then had the opportunity to go and lead at the district level as an assistant superintendent. And then my first superintendent job was in Watauga County for 4 years there. Loved it in the high country. But then the opportunity to come back home and lead as superintendent in Wilkes County become available. And we embraced it fully. And something about coming back to the communities that made such an impact on me in my early life.
Wow.
And later on. And they made a large impact on my daughter and my wife, because my wife's a native of Wilkes, and so is my daughter. And
Ramona and
to be able to come, Ramona and Caitlin, yes, to be able to come back and to give through leading as the superintendent of Wilkes County School. We had a great team the 4 years that I was superintendent here in Wilkes through 2016. We had a great team. And when I say great team, teachers in the classroom that not only knew their subject content and the skills of teaching it, they had such a nature about them that compelled students, and still do today, compel students to be drawn to them in that learning process. And and I give the principals of Wilkes County Schools a lot of credit for being able to hire those types of teachers. The students coming out of the Wilkes County Schools, and it needs to be known in a greater way, are awesome. You hear a lot said about youth today, but that's one thing I love about this Hall of Fame. It puts me back in contact with our youth, because, and we'll talk more about the mission of the Hall of Fame in a moment, but the way in which our youth today are graduating at a higher rate than they ever have from Wilkes County schools, and the skills and talents they have are just phenomenal. From the music and the arts, and we know the small guitar player, I think he's been on this show, Little Presley as an example, yeah. But also just great academic students. And so one of the visions that we have coming out of the Hall of Fame is that we're going to help people get the correct perception of Wilkes County, the greatness that springs forth from these communities, so that eventually we'll help bring a better stratified workforce to the area. I'm talking about jobs that require college degrees in large amounts, so that our youth that are accomplishing great things in Wilkes County schools move on and go to college and complete great degrees there. They'll have a place back near home, if they choose to come back and live near home, to work in what they prepared for. And currently that's a known weakness in our communities. And I think it all begins as we help people to understand the nature of our culture and our people here in Wilkes in a better light, in a truer light, that will help to bring more and more opportunities to our area.
Marty Hemric, let's go to the Hall of Fame. And that inception, those folks who came together and started, you said, around the table of, what about this? Tell us about, how does something that monumental start?
Well, and I'll try to be concise, because I know we're limited on the length of this show, but many, many hours. But it began, I guess the first spark was when Dennis Huggins, and you know Dennis Huggins well, he was our Director of Development for the Wilkes County Schools, and he'll be retiring coming this February. But what a great mind and a great communicator, and he reaches out and establishes so many genuine partnerships that help with the school system and beyond. But Dennis walked in my office one day and he said, or we sat and we were discussing the phenomenal students coming out of the youth program, you know, T3LC, and how amazed we were with the quality of people in Wilkes. And we just looked at each other and said, why don't we have a way to share the wealth and the richness of the human capital that exists in Wilkes County, so that others could be encouraged, inspired, especially our youth. So our youth coming from these same communities could say, maybe I can do that too. I could do something like that. And so that's where the spark sort of got going, and we started having conversations with some people from the community. And we knew if it was going to work, we had to get the right people at the table to begin with. And and I'm going to list you these 10 people that sat around the conference table there in my office in the Wilkes County Schools at the time. And it's in no particular order, but we had James Cook with Cook Sporting Goods. We had Larry Stone, former president of Lowe's Companies and a Wilkes native, and he's very proud of that. We had Phil Stevens. We had Tom Jones, Tammy.
Win the world.
All right. We had Tom Jones.
Tom Jones.
Tammy Whitworth.
Whitworth.
Of Win the World. Mm-hmm. Fabulous person. We also have Chris Scabo, Wayne Myers, Ian Adams, and myself. And we sat around the table just to explore the concept of a Hall of Fame for Wilkes County, because none had previously existed. And we, and very quickly, I remember Phil saying it, he said, I'm all for a Hall of Fame, but it needs to be comprehensive.
That was magic.
It was, and Larry chipped in immediately on that, and I think the rest of us did as well.
And that was the driving force to start that one fact about it must be inclusive of all.
Yes,
shine.
That we were going to establish the foundation for the Wilkes County Hall of Fame, a 501(c) nonprofit, and that we were going to recognize people from all walks of life. You don't have to be famous. You don't have to be wealthy. You know, because wealth comes in many different forms. But but we established very early on that you did have to make a substantial impact with your life, and and you were either born in Wilkes, resided in Wilkes at some point during your life, or now, as we've revised it in the last few years, spent substantial amount of time in Wilkes, in which you've made a large impact on the communities of Wilkes County. So, so that's sort of how it began back in the fall of 2013.
Okay. As
we sat around the table, and it come to form. We established the foundation, but I do want to mention 3 other components about those early meetings that came forth that I think made it magical.
Yeah.
Made it a living foundation, something that is more than just honoring. But we, number one, we said we do want to honor the past.
Yeah.
That we, because so many people deserve it, to be recognized for their contributions, for their accomplishments, and just who they are as an individual, and we can learn so much from them. So honor the past, embrace the present. We'd just come out of the deep recession, and so many people were looking for hope. And we said, this can embrace anybody, and they can see through the success and the persistence, endurance of the Hall of Famers that that will embrace us, and we know that we're coming from the same area in North Carolina. We can do likewise. But thirdly, to inspire the future. And that's where I think the nature of the Wilkes County Hall of Fame has shifted to something that's very unique and rare, in that we are actively looking for ways to work with, whether it be teachers or our youth, is to bridge this knowledge we have about the Hall of Fame inductees, and we're up to 48 now inducted into the Hall of Fame. But how can we take that knowledge and all the challenges those people experienced during their lives, and all the failures they had, but also all the success and all the attributes of each person, and how great that is, and how can we share that with our youth and the common public so that they can be inspired by that.
Dr. Marty Hemric, I think we've done such a great job of celebrating in the Stone Center the trophy cases and the pictures up and down the hall. What a wonderful touch that is to, if a person's in the Stone Center, you're going to know about the Wilkes County Hall of Fame.
That's right. And early on that was established too, that it had to be a place where people could go and share. And again, it's in the Stone Center because many of our students come through for many different activities every year, and a lot of the community does for different events in the Stone Center every year. So it could give the Hall of Fame and what we have learned about these people prominence, a place in our community to where it could be shared more easily. Of course, we also have the website that helps to share out this human capital as well. But the Stone Center, Stone Family Performing Arts Center is a great venue. Wow. And so we have, if you walk into the Stone Center and head toward the stage, on your right will be a large glass case with interior lighting. And what we do each year when a new class is inducted, they will be featured for 1 full year in this display cabinet. Wow. And what you'll find in there is a short biography along with a photo of the individual, and you will see artifacts from their life. And it could, I remember when Benny Parsons was in the cabinet, we had his NASCAR Winston Cup trophy was sitting in there, along with other photos and artifacts from his time in sports telecasting, broadcasting, and just other things from his entrepreneurial spirit and the person that he was. So each time you go in there, you'll see the current class of the Hall of Fame in the glass cabinet. And if we have space, we usually keep 2 years worth in there to be featured to share that. But then you go outside the Stone Center in the hallway where you enter, and we do have
kind of move from the auditorium outside in the hall with pictures.
That's right.
That's right.
Yes, and there you have a permanent display right. of the photo and the biography of each person that's been inducted, and year by year. So we started in the year 2014 with 10 inductees, right. that inaugural class, and then come May 23rd, 2019, we'll have 6 total classes then inducted.
Dr. Hemric, let's talk about the process. I think sometimes we get, that needs to be front and center. Let's talk about the foundation, and then you have a selection committee, and then the name, you have to be nominated to be in the Hall of Fame. Let's talk about the process, if you will.
Sure. In order for a person to be considered as an inductee to the Hall of Fame, they must first be nominated. So even though we have a board of governors that make up the foundation governing body, the 19 of us, we do not decide or go out and nominate people for the Hall of Fame. That must come from the general public. And so anyone from the general public can go to wilkescountyhalloffame.org, which is our website. They can click on nomination form, and they can submit a person that was either born in Wilkes, lived in Wilkes at some point in their life, or, this is very important, or maybe they didn't live in Wilkes and they weren't born in Wilkes, but they spent a substantial amount of time in Wilkes and made a huge impact. So anyone that meets those criteria, any one of those criteria, is eligible to be nominated. And then you go and fill out the nomination form, and we urge people to take their time and give us lots of information. Some of the best nominations that have come forward the forms were completely filled out, and it's not hard information. It may take a little time to fill it out, though. But they also come with people that would write personal statements about the nominee and what they accomplished in their life. Yes, testimonies. Tell us about that individual.
Right.
Because the committee, the subcommittee that is part of our governing board, which is called the nomination committee, what they will do each year, and let me say this before I go there, is the last day of January of each year is the cutoff for nominations to come in to be considered. And when those complete nominations come in, with all the testimonies and artifacts, newspaper clippings,
sure,
whatever you can come up with, when those come in to be considered for the class of 2019, for example, we must have that by January 31st, 2019. Once nominated, always nominated. So you will be considered every year if you've been nominated for the Wilkes Hall of Fame. So we're up to about 70 now nominees that are yet to go into the Hall of Fame. So in early February, the nomination committee will sit down and use a very particular rubric to read through all 70 or so nominations and to score each nominee. And then that committee comes together after individually scoring, and then they put up all the scores and look at the averages and have discussion to really vet how they've approached this. So it's a very objective as it can be, process based on what we know from the nomination form in making that year's selection. And we'll select 8 to 10 new Hall of Famers each year.
Dr. Hemric, we're going to, as we make sure, let's do 3 things before we finish. I want to talk about the gala, that's the ceremony. I want to talk about the fundraising side of it that means so much to our education system, and also about the forum. So if you'll kind of
merge those three
things together, if you will.
And the gala happens in May of each year. The next one's May 23rd.
That's the ceremony.
Yes. That's when we have Larry Stone Jr., who is a phenomenal master of ceremonies and business owner out of Tennessee, but he's a Wilkes native. And but he'll come in and lead us through about a 2-hour event where we have a formal dinner, sit-down dinner. There's about 200 plus people in the room. We have all the inductees there, of course. Just a very special time, and sponsored by Wilkes Communications is our major event sponsor there, but also Window-World. And so they really pitch in to help with this gala event, along with many other people. I wish we had time to go through that list, but you can see them on our website, the people that invest in this opportunity.
Investment, that's a good word.
That's right, it is an investment in our communities. But so that gala event brings each of the inductees up on stage to receive a chrysalis. And then we have a video that's produced right here in River Street on each of the inductees that kind of encapsulates their brief life that we can encapsulate in a video of why they're going into the Hall of Fame. It's a very spiritual moment. I'll have to say it that way when we experience that. It's great to see the families so excited and blessed. But one common trait I've seen in all 48 inductees is how humble each one is. Yeah. It humbles them so much to be honored that way.
So the money generated, quite a few dollars, goes back into grants in the classroom.
Yes, and this goes back to us being a living foundation. But we do this year will be the 5th year that we've given grants out to teachers that come up with ideas to help inspire youth and help them refine their skills and talents as they pursue success. And we're going to reach close to the $100,000 mark of total dollars that have gone back to our students in classrooms to give them greater opportunities. So That's a wonderful aspect.
All right, let's go to the forum.
We have a
This is
student leadership
first time this
forum. Yeah, earlier this month, November 5th, we had a youth leadership forum. We invited the Hall of Famers that are still living, of course, to come back and mix with youth from our high schools, our 5 high schools, and 4 middle schools. And what the forum existed of was a short time of the 10 inductees on stage just fielding some questions from our master's ceremony, Larry Jr., for students to listen to how their early life was in Wilkes County. And then the greatest part happened, in my opinion. The Hall of Famers came down and sat at the round table with the students for question and answer. Then we went back up and let students report out about what they had learned in this mix. So
I shall treasure that day as long as I live.
it was a way to bridge the wealth of human capital that has existed in Wilkes with our young people. And one thing that keeps coming back to my mind about that event was the young lady that stood behind John Swafford when they were reporting out about the person that they had got to sit and speak with. They asked her a question. She said, well, John didn't really answer that question, but I think he would have said this. And she said it, and she reached up and said, isn't that right, John? And he grinned. He said, yeah, that's right. And but what the beauty of that was to me was in that short time of sitting with John Swafford and listening to him and talking with John, she began to think like John thinks.
Right.
And going back to my statement about Lou Holtz, somewhere along the line that will merge into who she is as an individual. And she might just use the way John thinks in some applications in her life. So it's,
Dr. Hemric, I want to thank you for being here today. What an honor. And as you share with us your experience and your hope for Wilkes County and these youngsters, and also the heroes that we celebrate. And we want to thank River Street and Wilkes Communications for this honor. And I hope that Dr. Marty Hemric is painting a picture for us today about the incredible things that are happening in Wilkes County. And I'm sure he'll come back with us again. So God bless you, friend, and what an honor to have you here.
thank you, Gary, and thank you for WIFM's support with this Hall of Fame.
Thank you.